Welcome to Burst Code TV, a groundbreaking channel that fearlessly exposes the hidden underbelly of society. Uncover the dark truths. Today we shall be talking about female gangs in New York. At this point, let's take a look at some female gangs in New York, as some sister gangs are popping up all over Manhattan, Brooklyn, Queens, and the Bronx with names such as the Harlem Hiltons, Hood Barbies, Billion Dollar Beauties, Gun Clappin' Divas, and Two Girl Goddess. Today we are talking about female gangs in New York. We are going to be starting off with the history of female gangs in New York. During the 19th century, Freedom of the Streets historian Marilyn Woodhill makes reference to the presence of female gangs. After the Civil War, women were becoming more prominent in political and social movements across the whole country. This led to the burgeoning New York society also becoming more socially conscious of the plight of women and girls. Laws against unruly behavior were very much focused on the male population, and so spates of equal-mindedness amongst groups of women were left largely undocumented. Until the introduction of the Social Security Act of 1935, it was the responsibility of individual states to support the needy. In conjunction with this, the Home Relief Bureau in New York would provide assistance to families and individual males, while the Bureau of Child Welfare would support mothers who were struggling to make ends meet. Giving birth to a girl baby meant that she could potentially face a lifetime of poverty and disadvantage, which could be passed on to the next generation down the female line. This idea of the same bad luck following generations of women cemented the fate of females as continually being second-class citizens. This is shown in statistics at this period in history also established that female gangs became a significant problem in New York, and it was after the 1935 Social Security Act that the government began to actively fund single mothers. Female migration picked up in the early stages of the act in the hope of breaking free from the reliance on male patronage and gang involvement, and the female population began to rise. The same biases that had left females underrepresented in the population and largely ignored in law and order meant that the Social Security Act opened up new avenues for young women and mothers within New York society. Although the act focused more on welfare and social good for the individual, the freedom of women politically and their increased visibility more widely in society provided the platform for these opportunities. By the time the United States entered the Second World War in 1941, it is clear that female criminal activity in New York was on the decline. The home front played a role in this, as the government would step in to provide more state benefits like free nursery places and free education. As couples became more likely to marry and females could work and achieve economic freedom, there was less incentive for women to commit low-level crimes as they had done so in the 19th and earlier 20th centuries. This is reflected in historical records that show the frequency of female arrests fell consistently through the 1940s and 1950s. The legacy of female gangs in New York is a topic that can be explored through history, politics, and sociology. Extensive research and records have allowed both scholars and amateurs to piece together the influences that led to the creation of female gangs and the ways in which they have shaped the research into the beginning of political and social freedom. Although there have been some factors that contributed to the rise of female gangs in New York. But there is no one single, defining reason why female gangs in New York have been on the rise in the last 15 years. Rather, it is a combination of many factors, all of which can be seen as originating from wider, more systemic societal issues. One of the primary reasons is that young people, especially those from more deprived areas and backgrounds, have increasingly been the victims of what is called social exclusion. This social exclusion can take many forms, but one of the primary ways in which it manifests itself is in educational access and attainment. Studies have shown that young people, often from minority groups or more deprived areas, have less and less access to good quality education. And, of course, without educational attainment and without the skills and qualifications that it is supposed to provide, their life chances decrease significantly. With less to lose and less to hope for in the future, many young people, it is argued, are more attracted to gang life as a way of finding some sort of identity and purpose. In turn, the rise of female gangs can be seen as part of a wider, growing problem in New York and other cities, that is, the increasing segregation and stigmatization of poorer communities. In but another indication of a divided society, those from more middle-class areas can often live their lives largely untouched by the problems facing young people in other, less advantaged areas. Policymakers and commentators alike do tend to agree that something must be done about the issue of social exclusion and also, by extension, the rise of girl gang members. however, significant evidence to suggest that issues such as poor educational access and lack of opportunity are drivers in the rise of female gang. It is not always clear what comes first. Do female gang members feel the effects of social exclusion and deprivation and consequently turn to gangs? This is a question to be sked and answered. There are different impact of female gangs on New York City. However, law enforcement strategies usually either ignore female gang members by focusing on male gangs or overemphasize gender differences and treat female gang members as a homogeneous group with special needs, neglecting the complex and fluid nature of female gang membership. Such a knowledge gap means that prevention and intervention strategies for female gang members are rarely evidence-based, and there are few targeted programs for female gang members in New York City. According to a report by the New York City Criminal Justice Agency, female gang members have a high level of unmet needs such as housing, employment, and mental health support and are at risk of reoffending. A recent study also highlights that female gang members in New York City are doubly marginalized both in the public eye and within gang families because they do not have the social capital and values, the family concern, male respect, protection, and solidarity through warfare that are considered foundational to the traditional gang structure. This suggests that targeted support services and prevention strategies must consider the wider social and structural context of female gang membership, recognizing that female gang members may not typically conform to the homogenized gendered categories of women, and the alternative values and position in society may increase the level of violence and exploitation within gang families. Also, improved operational knowledge for the helping professions, for law enforcement, and for the wider socio-legal system should be built to enable a move towards evidence-based, effective policy and practice for intervening and supporting female gang members in New York City. Female gang members are responsible for a significant level of violence and abuse in New York City. Law enforcement data shows that female gang membership has significantly increased over the years and has a direct impact on public safety in the city. The New York Police Department has ranked female gangs as one of the fastest-growing criminal problems in the city. Female gang members have been increasingly involved in criminal activities such as drug trafficking, robbery, larceny, assault, and homicide. Now let's take a profile of female gang members, and you will discover that most female gang members are teenagers. Researchers believe that there are more younger female gang members today than ever before. Girls of all races and cultures in New York City may join gangs. Many female gang members have sisters, cousins, or friends who are in a gang. Girls join gangs for many of the same reasons as boys. They may feel disconnected from their families, peers, or communities. They may lack self-esteem, feel isolated, or be angry with the world. Many females join in order to find a sense of family or belonging that they have not received at home. Some experts argue that girls are much more likely than boys to have been a victim of sexual or physical abuse. Many girls who join gangs may have a history of tragic and abusive situations. Street gangs offer protection to these girls. There are also girls who are led to believe that only by becoming a gang member are they able to achieve power and respect. These types of girls are usually looking for protection and a way of life that ensures control and power. Street gangs are predominantly male, and having such significant percentages of men involved shows that power and leadership is highly valued by society. This is what many females are looking for when they join, an opportunity to gain more power over their lives and others. Demographics of female gang members. The total number of male gang members across the United States is estimated to be around 1 million, whereas the number of female gang members is much lower at around 180,000. However, studies have found that the number of female gang members is increasing in comparison to the number of male gang members. The average age of a male gang member is around 17 years old, and the average age of a female gang member is 15 years old, illustrating that females enter gang life at a younger age than males. Unlike male gang members, who are spread out across the country and in different types of communities, female gang members are more highly concentrated in major cities such as Los Angeles, California. This is interesting in the context of New York City, which has a relatively higher proportion of female gang members in comparison to male gang members. It is suggested that this disproportionate ratio is due to the increased chance females have of being recruited into gangs. Another big question that will come to mind is how our recruitment and initiation process is done. The initiation ceremonies for female gangs are widely varied. For some, it may be a matter of being jumped in by a certain number of fellow gang members. This is similar to the male initiation process, although it is further complicated by the fact. Finally, female gang members may also join a gang to find protection from other gangs or threats in their communities. According to Miller and Brunson, for gang girls and boys, seeking protection can be a major reason for joining a gang. Like male gang members, females may become associated with gangs for security purposes, especially in dangerous neighborhoods or in areas of the city where gang violence is prevalent. In addition, the girls may see the gang as a family or social group that offers a sense of belonging, love, support, and protection. As the National Gang Center reports, gang members often join to feel a sense of community and to reassert control, albeit negative, over their lives. For females, who may experience domestic violence or abuse, a gang can represent an alternative to the home situation. Ultimately, the gang environment can act as a support network for individual members when facing challenges from authorities, rival gangs, or even family. The sense of empowerment, autonomy, and independence is especially attractive to marginalized women, including female gang members in New York City. For example, it has been reported that young women are more likely to use gang involvement as a method of resistance against parental or societal controls and traditional gender norms. Moreover, the gang may offer opportunities for redefining one's social identity by allowing its members to take on varying roles in terms of leadership, violent behavior, or caregiving. The London Metropolitan University's research has revealed that over time, females develop agency within the gang through adopting what the researchers describe as a male respectability identity. This essentially refers to the idea that in order to gain status in the gang, female members must mimic the accepted forms of femininity as defined by male members. However, this can serve to reinforce patriarchal structures or power relations based on masculinity within the gang world. On one level, then, it can be suggested that the motivations and reasoning behind female gang involvement relate particularly to wider gender issues and representations within society. Such motivations for joining a gang in terms of identity, belonging, and empowerment are essential to preventing the recruitment of vulnerable females and developing targeted intervention and support initiatives. Challenges and risks faced by female gang members. Injuries and even death due to violence are an ever-present threat to female gang members. Since they often do not have substantial physical strength, many female gang members carry weapons to compensate for it. The use and threat of violence are what allow gangs to control territories. Female gang members are often arrested for assaults, sexual assaults, and murders, as these criminal activities are a reflection of the gang's character and territorial expansion strategies. Such charges can result in long prison sentences, which can absent mothers from their children's lives. It can also lead to a cease in welfare and social security benefits for the children of the accused. Despite such worries, it has been recorded that more and more women are willing to be locked up for the benefit of their fellow gang members. RAIN has estimated that domestic abuse affects 48% of women nationwide, while figures from the British Crime Survey indicate that 1 in 4 women will experience domestic abuse at some point in their lifetime. However, only 21% of the victims actually report the crimes to the police. This suggests that in reality, there may be more than 750,000 female victims of domestic abuse every year, as opposed to the 175,000 estimated by current statistics. Violence and criminal activities. Female gang members are often involved in criminal and violent activities. Research findings by Campbell, Mile, and Shirley also suggest that many female gang members also have prior criminal records, with higher rates for serious and violent offenses. The same research also found that women usually become more involved in criminality when they join a gang. Female gang members are often recruited as prostitutes, drug mules, or decoys. The Home Office 2004 research conducted by Val Tregeris also revealed that women who belong to gangs may be criminally exploited. She said, quite often they might have to carry drugs for their boyfriend, they might be coerced or feel geographically isolated, they might be forced into carrying knives to protect drugs, knives, or cash, or they might be sold into sexual exploitation. Worryingly, studies have found that being involved in a gang can lead to an increased risk of experiencing violence and abuse, and that many girls join gangs in order to feel protected against other gang members or dangerous peers. A 2011 research by the Race on the Agenda for Commission on Race and Gender Equality found that women in gangs may be subject to gender-based violence gangs. It said that women and girls were at risk of violence and abuse, and that female gang members are often brutally assaulted, face coercion into criminality, and repeatedly experience domestic abuse within and outside their gang-affected relationships. This research also found that few women are in a position to report the abuse, as they are in a cycle of dependencies on male gang members. Such findings were supported by the academic literature. Dr. Rose Broad and Dr. Danish Ali found that women have fears of retaliatory violence against them and death, and feel that they need to stay in violent and abusive relationships because they do not have the support to leave. The research also suggested that women who are criminally exploited may be a victim of modern slavery. Val Tregeris argued that women in gangs may fall under the definition of modern slavery under the Modern Slavery Act 2015, exploitation and abuse within gangs. Female gang members are especially vulnerable to domestic violence since, when a woman is a member of a gang, the domestic abuse is complicated by the gang dynamics and ethological tendencies of male gang members. Most healthcare providers or those in social services with medical training have spent countless hours working with victims of domestic abuse. This is relatively common knowledge amongst the public at large that domestic violence is a serious issue. Rivalries and conflicts with other gangs. Female gangs in New York City are known for their intense rivalries and conflicts with other gangs, especially in relation to disputes over male gang members or retaliation for disrespect. Rivalry between female gangs often results in fights, which can have serious consequences for the participants. In fact, attack styles among female gang members focus on methods that are more injurious, such as when an enemy gang member is jumping and in a vulnerable position on the ground, instead of a cowardly attack. This adds to the violence in scene and also to the injury level. The injury level among the victims of female gang violence is shown to be far greater than the similar injury level of male gang victims of violence. The rivalries among female gang members and the formation of gangs specifically under the auspices of teaming to retaliate against particular attacks and gang members have significant application to investigations and arrests of female gang members under the RICO Act of Organized Crime and Conspiracy laws. Intervention and prevention strategies. Addressing the problem of female gang activities requires a comprehensive approach, considering the various factors and influences that draw young women toward gangs. This includes a focus on prevention and early intervention. Law enforcement agencies work with schools in identifying potential gang members and have established a multi-agency approach to sharing intelligence and developing more effective intervention strategies. Operation Keep Safe, for example, is a law enforcement operation aimed at warning parents and young people about exploitation of children and vulnerable adults. The operation also helps to identify victims and bring prosecutions. On the other hand, community-based programs such as the Brooklyn Young Mothers Collective provide female gang members with much-needed support, including childcare, healthcare, mental health, substance abuse, domestic violence, and parenting support services. The Law Reform and Domestic Violence Intervention Project involves legal assistance to women facing family court matters such as divorce, custody, visitation, and immigration. Some cultural awareness and educational programs have been implemented. For instance, police officers and community support officers have participated in a domestic violence in South Asian communities training session. Law enforcement efforts to combat female gangs. Not only does law enforcement need to engage in efforts to combat female gangs, it also needs to tailor its approach to dealing with female gang members in particular. One of the main strategies for law enforcement includes prosecuting gang members for a wide range of offenses. By doing so, members are more likely to be prosecuted for their criminal conduct and, if convicted, receive substantial criminal sentences. A successful example of such a strategy is illustrated by a case known as the United Blood Nation prosecution. This was the largest single indictment of gang members in New York City's history. A total of 83 members of the United Blood Nation gang were prosecuted and convicted of various offenses from racketeering, murder, and attempted murder to illegal firearms possession and assault. 61 of those convicted were sentenced to federal prison, some for terms up to life in prison. The impact of this successful prosecution not only dismantled the gang, but will also lead to a successful prevention of future recruitment and establishment of the United Blood Nation gang. Another main law enforcement strategy is the adoption of a proactive investigative approach to female gang violence and serving gang members with injunctions. Such an approach was adopted in Florida in 2006 by law enforcement and gang and juvenile crime units.